This was a presentation that Ascentria Care put together and showed for the first time a couple of weeks ago. People at Holy Trinity have asked if they could see the whole presentation. So Tim, with his magic, never mind, I'm just talking about you. Tim, with his magic, called Ascentria and they sent it to us. So here we go. Why Ascentria? Ascentria has been dealing with refugees in New Hampshire almost exclusively, and this means that they are perhaps the most qualified, perhaps the most knowledgeable about what has to be done. Now, having said that, we are on a completely different road than we have ever been before. And so in many, many ways, as you will see through the presentation, Ascentria is inventing the wheel. Now let's talk just a couple minutes about Holy Trinity. This congregation has quite a history of being involved with immigration issues, from the Vietnam War right straight through to the unrest in the Middle East, and now all the way up to, let's see, we have a whole congregation of Indonesians, and now we have responsibility to start thinking about how to help the people who were rescued from Afghanistan. We belong, besides to Ascentria, which is Lutheran-based, we belong to two other organizations, and you've heard me talk about them before. Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services is the oldest refugee service run by a church in America. It was formed during the Second World War to rescue people from the German area, especially Jews. So we are the oldest. I like to think that means that we also know the most. The second organization we belong to is the Seacoast Interfaith Sanctuary Coalition, which was formed about 5 years ago. It's a coalition of all churches in the area who want to be a part of it. And that is how we got introduced to Claudine and how we are working with Temple Israel and now South Church, downtown Portsmouth, to help with Claudine. Let's see. The first reason that Ascentria is having to invent the wheel again is that these people have come en masse and very fast. And they need a different road than the typical road that immigrants would take in order to become part of the American society. They have a special name too. They are Humanitarian Parolees because they don't fit into any other category. So for whatever reason, I don't know who was responsible, but somebody decided to call them Humanitarian Parolees, and you'll see that too in the presentation. Brand new category. Okay, let's go to the next. Here's what we know so far. We know that 40 states, 40 of the United States, just 40, are getting immigrants. The people who have already dealt with immigration have been these 40 states. I can't tell you who's not included, but I can tell you that in New Hampshire, we're getting 100 people. Now, of that 100 people, some will be families. No family has more than 6. And most of them will probably be single men. But 100 people. New Hampshire's already, Alliance in New Hampshire is already involved with 50 pre-Afghanistan immigrants. So they have 2 systems going now, the regular one with the 50 and this new one they're creating for the 100. Let's see. The people from Afghanistan right at this minute are all being housed, mostly in the south, on military bases. And they will be in the military base temporary housing, mostly tents, from 3 days to a few months. You might be interested in knowing that Massachusetts, our neighbor, is getting over 1,000 immigrants. Why? Why didn't we qualify for 1,000? because we don't have housing available. If you look around the seacoast, you know that there is nothing reasonably cost. If you go up north, it's too far to be away from Ascentria offices. So everybody that's coming, the first attempt is going to be to settle them around what they call the I-93 corridor. That's Concord, Nashua, Manchester, that area. That way, Ascentria can be there to do whatever needs to be done to get them settled. The other consideration is that we don't want them to be completely separated. I know how it would feel to be the only Muslim. No, I don't know how it would feel. I can only guess that it wouldn't feel comfortable to be the only Muslim or the only person from Afghanistan and have nobody around you speaking your native language. So Ascentria is going to attempt to settle them in community. Okay, let's go to the next one. So why has Ascentria taken the role? Because they're the most qualified. Even though they have to invent the wheel, they know more about this than anybody else in New Hampshire. They know that to strengthen communities by empowering people is to respond to life's challenges. They want to empower people of all backgrounds to rise together and reach beyond life's challenges. And they want to create an innovative, human-centered care model to help individuals and families in transition to move forward and thrive, physically, intellectually, socially, spiritually, and economically. I don't have very good eyesight, so some of you might think, oh, she doesn't know how to read. It's not true. I do know how to read. Next one. Okay. Attempting to apply the models that they already have. This is kind of confusing, so I'm going to try to sort of go through it step by step with you. And it's a reflection of how difficult this situation is, taking what they already know and trying to adapt it. You know, it would normally take about 6 months to do what they're having to do in about 1 month. So it's really a work in progress. Applying the Equipped to Thrive framework for this mission. Equipped to thrive means stability, well-being, and opportunity. So let's look at those 3 words at the top of the diagram: stability, well-being, and opportunity. Stability is part number 1. In order to reach stability, in part number 1, the quality of maintaining consistency, we have to start at the bottom. Everyone who arrives is in urgent crisis mode. We start at the bottom. Then with food, housing, transportation, dependent care, and legal services. Can you read those words from where you're sitting? Okay. Using those 5 categories, we hope to move people rapidly from urgent to vulnerable, still not really good, to balanced, where we can begin to breathe, to building and achieving, and then finally to thriving. Does that make sense? Now we go to the second category, well-being, the state of being comfortable, healthy, and or happy. And we go through the same steps. Physical health, mental health, and that's a huge one because many of these people will have PTSD. Many of these folks have been through tremendous trauma. Networks and internal strengths. And then again, go up the 5 categories. Lastly, opportunity. We want all 100 of these folks to know the opportunities that will be available to them in this country. We thank them for what they have gone through, and we hope to support every effort that they're making to continue towards opportunity. We create a building committee. We help them find savings, monetary savings. We help them through education and then income and career. Any questions about that? I know it's confusing. Yes, Glenn?
Where is language that into that mix?
We'll get it in a minute, okay? All right, next slide. Okay, what Ascentria has come up with is to form neighborhood support teams, or NSTs. A neighborhood support team will be the crucial part of the support systems in place for Afghans' arrival in your community, in our community. What do? They work alongside Ascentria case managers to help Afghan families and individuals access resources, recover and heal, and build self-confidence. I can't read it. Thank you. How are they formed? NSTs are formed when a community decides that they want to make the commitment to sponsor an individual or family by providing supports for up to 1 year. Both parties are involved in the matching process. What can NSTs expect? For the first 2 months of a person's arrival, NSTs can expect to spend approximately 40 hours a week helping the person or family acclimate to their new community and settle in their new homes. NSTs are made typically of 20 to 30 people. We are asking people to fundraise as well as organize into teams. One of the suggestions that was made when the SISC, the Seacoast Interfaith Sanctuary Coalition, came together under this presentation is that because there are 3 congregations right now actively involved in Portsmouth, those 3 congregations, meaning South Church, St. John's Church, St. John's Episcopal, and the Temple, could perhaps organize together to form an NST. There are several churches in Dover, and I can't name them all, who already belong to SISC, and it was suggested that those churches could organize an NST. Now here we sit in the middle of nowhere because we don't have a community church. We have a church that draws from a lot of different places. So if we are interested, it might make more sense for us to join either a Portsmouth NST or a Dover NST. We'll be talking and we'll see if we want to do that. There are other opportunities for us as well as joining one of the teams. Next. As I mentioned, the term given to identify this group of refugees is Humanitarian Parolees. And that is what causes all the difference in the model. This new model, we think will have a transitional period with individuals and families arriving with little information about the community they're coming to. Agencies are receiving less information than usual because it's gone so fast. Matching. We believe that those arriving have the basic right to be supported through a process that empowers them and rebuilds a sense of dignity that evacuating their homeland has attempted to take away from them. Even if I think everybody in this room was from an immigrant family because I don't see any Native Americans. Am I right? Everybody? But most of us, not you, Lena, but most of us have come a couple generations from that experience. It must be horrendous to be in the position that these people are in. Electronic records. Ascentria is in the process right now of finding a way to set up electronic records so that they can better keep track of everything that's going on. And timing. We are developing a process in a matter of weeks that typically takes months. Next slide. Okay, the first few days. Well-being is about knowing you will be supported. So upon arrival, this is what the family can, or a single person can expect. welcome to the family at the airport, identify with a cultural mentor interpreter, travel to the transitional housing setup, get everyone settled and have a welcoming homemade meal, triage any urgent medical or mental health needs. Let me also put in here that these folks have already been vaccinated, and there are other medical things that have been done in the military bases, in their temporary housing. Ensure individual family has seasonal clothing and a kitchen stocked with food. Clothing is a huge thing because New Hampshire needs warm clothing in the winter. Prioritize aspects of housing and safety orientation needed for the first night. Make sure the family has a charged phone and a number to call 24/7. One thing that happens at the military bases is that people are given phones that have power already on them, and they are also given $50 per person so that they have a little tiny bit of spending money. And then finally, ensure the family has the pocket money, and that's the $50. Within a day, meet with the family to learn more about who they are, what their hopes and dreams are. Listen to individual families' journey and pay particular attention to their emotional needs. And as I said before, the emotional needs will probably be very great. Continue orientation to housing and safety. Provide additional basic needs that are learned, including medications, hygiene, baby supplies, specific housing items. Ensure access to spiritual supports, i.e. probably prayer rugs and anything else that they might want. Okay, we'll go through the next few days quickly, and then we're going to have time for just questions. Okay, the first 5 days. So far, they've only been here 24 hours. Within 5 days, continue to meet and talk to the individual and their hopes and dreams. Gather additional information about education, employment, traditional intake questions. Orient the family to the matching process and share NST profiles. Arrange and meet and greet with the NST, that's the team. Verify and organize documents and determine legal needs. Schedule health appointments for everyone as necessary. It is written into the requirements that Ascentria supply health appointments within 30 days. So that has to be done. Next one. Okay, let's go on to 5 to 7. Develop a plan of care with the individual and family to include health needs, public benefits, food stamps. These folks don't have jobs yet. DTA transitional assistance, security, social security applications, and state IDs. The cultural mentor begins orienting individual and family to the many differences of living in the United States through an online learning platform as well as virtual and in person. So these folks also, if they're going to be expected to learn online, guess what they need? NST meets with the family to orient them to the community, the stores, the resources, the activities, etc. I mean, such basic things as taking them to the nearest grocery store and helping them to navigate the way groceries are set up in the United States. After living in Tanzania, I can tell you that they're not the same. I have not lived in Afghanistan, but they're probably not the same there either. Then from days 7 to 10, individuals and family transition to family hosting or NST's identified apartment housing. Again, we probably won't have people actually housed here on the seacoast. NSTs and individual family prioritize next steps on the plan of care to include enrollment in eligible services that fit the family's needs, complete an employment history and connect with NST team assists with orientation to employment in the U.S., provide CV support and interview support, and then to determine supports needed for ESOL and develop a plan. Ascentria Care an extra note here. Ascentria Care already has an employment coordinate, and actually more than one. So these folks are going to get very specific and professional help. Next one. Okay, days 10 through 30. Somehow we are expected by day 30 to have people oriented to this country. Continue work between the individual family and their NST team on the plan of care. Ensure that everyone attends their initial health assessment. Present education options for school-age youth and arrange for all the meetings and the testings that that's going to take. Can you imagine if a family arrives in the United States in November or December and they have a kid in elementary school and a kid as a junior high student and maybe a high schooler? Whew. Identify opportunities for the family members to connect with local community groups and activities. Ensure that they're supported. Assist adults in applying for jobs and completing interviews. In just a minute, Glenn, just a minute, your question will be answered. Ascentria check in with individual family and NSTs to see how everything is going. Ongoing cultural orientation with the cultural mentor. They do have specific cultural mentors stationed at Ascentria who especially understand more than the rest of us what it's like to try to bridge the gap between an Afghan experience and an American experience. Next one. Okay, at day 30, supposedly, they're oriented. Now we go from 30 to 90. Individual family, NST, and Ascentria will meet 3 times during this 30 to 90 day period to check on the progress of the plan of care. Activities set up during the period should include a bank account, and think about a bank account. A person from another country might not know about online banking, might not do phone banking. All of that has to be covered. Locate permanent housing, select the furniture, sign a lease with either the NST or Ascentria as guarantor for 6 months, check in with the school-aged youth, how the academics are going, ensure medical home for all family members. Each one of them has to have a permanent sort of HMO. Ensure anyone who needs access to mental health supports are receiving those, formally or informally. Nearing the end. Another one. Now I think this might be where we come in. NSA volunteer opportunities. By the way, NSA means Services for New Americans. Services for New Americans, and it's a term that Ascentria uses, so you'll see it once in a while. Okay, volunteer opportunities. Appointment transportation. They don't have cars yet. They are going to need to be transported to all kinds of appointments, to get groceries, to go to the bank, whatever they need. We also have buses in the I-93 corridor, so they'll have to be learning how to use those systems of navigation as well. Computer or ESL tutoring. Isn't that what you asked about, Glenn?
No, I asked about language.
Okay. ESL and computer tutoring, documentation services aid, Social Security or the state ID, and donation deliveries. And my guess is that we have some generous people at Holy Trinity who would be willing to do some donating to help the people in I-93 corridor or wherever these folks are going to end up. And I would put part of the language thing under ESL. Let's hold it there for now. Let's go on to the next one. There's 3 pages of these. Office aid, assistant Ascentria staff. Assist Ascentria staff. They can use volunteers anytime. If you want to travel over to the Concord office, they'll use you. Personal shoppers for for the Afghans. They'll need everything for the kitchen. They'll need all kinds of household things. A setup team, help with the setup of a house or an apartment before the refugees arrive. A donation collector, and an industry specialist. You might be able to share your expertise with one or two of the newest Americans. Next, third page out of 3. They're going to need somebody who knows how to develop a resume that will work in America. So resume developing, job application specialist. As I mentioned, Ascentria has several job application specialists already, and they will help the Afghan by using the resume, searching for job opportunities, and tell them, kind of guide them into where they should be applying. Financial literacy specialist, and that goes back to the banking. It's a completely different system in the United States than in the Middle East, so they'll have to be trained. Medical assistant, ensure that the medical caseworker with billing, reconciliation, medical forms and filing, transportation to appointments, and obtaining financial assistance. Social media, plan a monthly spread of stories, pictures, etc. This is something that SISC already does, and it's amazing if we share a story with somebody, people respond. These are not just a crowd. These are individual human beings, and every single one of them has a powerful story to tell. And so one of the biggest things that we can do is help them tell their story. And finally, family reunion specialist, help clients fill out the paperwork required to get other family members to the United States. The United States has already set up a group of a method of helping them, putting them to the front of the line and helping them to get their family members here with them. If you were a single man escaping Afghanistan and you had to leave your family behind, not fun. And the final slide. Okay, if you want to be a volunteer on a large scale, you will submit an application. Ascentria will provide the application, and you'll identify how you want to work. Then you have to complete a criminal background check, and you have to prove that you know how to drive. Then you meet with staff at the local SNA office. We don't have a local office. That means probably Concord. And attend volunteer training. And I don't know how long the volunteer training, how many hours that uses. As I said before, we probably are not in a position to set up a complete NST on our own, but we might be able to join with Portsmouth or with Dover. Those would be the two logical places. That's the last slide. It's a lot of information to throw out. Questions, comments?
Where in this process will the initial application for citizenship be started for these folks? Does Ascentria have a fleet of lawyers to help these folks maneuver through that process? The
answer is yes. They have several lawyers who are already working with them who specialize in immigration needs. And there's real hope that this process can begin within that first 30 days.
Wonderful.
More? Yes.
What about the language?
Okay, and it's a really valid question. It wasn't specifically covered up here, but we do need people who are willing to teach. ESOL or ESL is readily available. It would be wonderful if we could find people who specialize in the Mideastern languages, somebody who has that knowledge. I don't. You don't, right? Scandinavia doesn't hack it right now. No? Mm-hmm. And African. Then, if I were you, I would get on the Ascentria site and read what I can from Ascentria Care Alliance, get right on their site and begin reading what I can about language and tutoring. I encourage all of us to spend some time on the Ascentria Care Alliance site. It's out of Concord, and it will also include, where was that other, SNA, It'll also include information about that. And it's this information, but there's a lot of other things on there as well. More? Annie?
Is the volunteer application online?
I didn't see it online. That's a really good question. It might be. Kurt? Mm-hmm. Yep. Right. Yep. He's absolutely right that most of them have been employed in some way or another with the American military in Afghanistan. Yes.
Physically, where are people going to be before they have permanent housing?
Good question. Physically, where are people going to be before they have permanent housing? Through SISC, the Seacoast Interfaith Sanctuary Coalition, and through a larger refugee and immigration system within the state of New Hampshire, there are quite a number of homes that have already been approved for people to stay in temporarily. Let me use Claudine as an example. When she was released from detention, she stayed in 3 different temporary homes before she finally was able to secure an apartment for herself. So there are people who already are qualified, who already have met the standards, but we need a lot more. If you have a bedroom and a bathroom that can be separated, you could take a person. Taking a family would be a little more difficult. But if you have a mother-in-law apartment, they're going to need it. If you have a couple of rooms, if you have let's say that you live in 2 stories and you have recreation area and bathroom on the 2nd floor, maybe you could have somebody temporarily for a little while. So again, we'd have to go through Ascentria to figure it out. Yes.
Yeah, if we wanted to donate to this help, do we donate via the church, and how do we do this?
I'm guessing that we will donate through Holy Trinity, the way that people have been donating for Claudine. And nobody has stepped forward at this moment to volunteer to be the person in charge of that. Glenn?
Has any conversations been or ideas been put out about getting matching funds for private? We have
Yeah,
to do that?
yeah, absolutely. And there is also, actually Lynn could speak to this. Is Lynn here? No. Which of the churches up north a little bit in New Hampshire has been, not Conway. Amherst. Amherst actually has a sponsorship program right now, and they are approved as of October 1st for, along with First Methodist of Amherst, and they have an actual house, and it was going to be occupied by the 1st of November, and then the city found out that it didn't have all of the requirements met for fire safety, things like that. So they're having to go back to square one and finish that out. But it is possible, and through Thrivent's help, it is possible to get funds to do this, if anybody has ideas about homes that are available.
I presently have a lot of things, like I have in my car now clothing, furniture. Is it a place now where you can?
The answer is almost. There's going to be a tremendous need. Lena's question is, do we need clothing and furniture and household goods collected, and if so, where? If you were at the back of the church at any time over the last few months, you know that we did this with Claudine. We had things stored in one of the back Sunday school rooms, which was convenient because we're not teaching Sunday school at this moment. I think there's not a place to put these things yet, so hold off. If you have things that you would like to donate, my advice would be to keep them as long as you can. We don't know what is going to be on that list. We also don't know where the things are going yet. So if we could hold for a month, maybe, with that question.